Hi, and welcome to the podcast, Help Me, Rhonda. I'm your host, Dr. Rhonda Karg. I'm a clinical psychologist, and each episode of this podcast, I will be presenting mental health related information to you. Sometimes on the show, I have special guests like today that will share their experience, strength, and hope with you in terms of the challenges that they've been able to overcome and the methods that they've used that help them the most with their challenges. So today's very special guest is Violet, and Violet is going to share information with us today about what it's like to have a child who has high needs or complex needs, and how to navigate that system, and also how to practice self-care when you have a complex need child, which is really challenging, I'm sure. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story today, Violet. So welcome to the show. So tell us, Violet, when did this journey begin for you?
Of course, every journey with children starts when they're born, but or even beforehand. And I will say that I was a little bit older when I had my last child, and he was very healthy when he was born, but as he was developing and getting a little bit older, I started noticing some really difficult behaviors and difficult social skills and things, as well as unusual behaviors. And I thought he was just a little bit rambunctious and difficult. He's quite intelligent and sneaky. So I
He's precocious. Right, he's precocious. Right.
Very smart, and it's his powers to be sneaky quite frequently. So I thought he was just a rascal. But when he started in school, he did okay for a little while, and then around about third grade, he started to have some serious problems with anger management and social skills and all sorts of things in the school environment, to the point where the school personnel started to take note, and I started getting phone calls and meetings and all sorts of things. And he started having escalations in the school. So I would say that's when his struggles really started to become apparent in a big way, in third grade. And that is the time when actually we sought care for him. He was in inpatient care, short term, for his mental health. And I started finding out at that time that there were services being recommended for him that I couldn't access. So continued having struggles, and we tried, we tried a variety of medication and things. And then he ended up again inpatient for a short term, and then he received some services through day treatment, which was pretty much the only service we were able to access, in addition to just regular therapy and intermittent psychiatric assistance from a psychiatrist. Meanwhile, he continued struggling. And I started wondering, is this really all that's going on? So I tried to get testing done for him, and I come to find out that, I suspected he may be on the autism spectrum, as well as having mental health issues. So as he was on the reduced school day, the school was having more and more trouble handling him.
Okay.
Then he went into a day treatment through the school, where he was going to a partial day at a special school with behavioral health specialists. However, the autism was not being addressed. Have the diagnosis. Meanwhile, in the home, I have other children We have one child with physical difficulties, and trying to handle both the kids.
So, what were the indicators for you for autism? What made you suspect that he might be on the spectrum?
Well, there were a number of indicators that I started wondering about. One is he had really difficult interpersonal relationships. He wasn't forming normal ties with his peers. A lot of things like making repetitive noises and repetitive movements and having some behaviors that I did not think were normal behaviors for someone of his age and what have you. And I thought at first, I was wondering, like, is this OCD? Or, I didn't know what to think, but it was becoming more and more unmanageable by me without some help. And so he was in the day treatment. He came out of the day treatment. He was doing a bit better, but since he did not really have the appropriate diagnoses for the IEP, he came out of day treatment and back into the school system with no support to help him maintain the progress he made in day treatment. So meanwhile, he's in school and I'm getting calls. At one point, I was getting calls every day to come and get him. And it was to the point where the police were chasing him around because he was running out of the classroom and running outside or hiding. And those were signs of sensory overload, in my opinion. So clearly, some kind of sensory overload. He was telling me he didn't want people looking at him. He would hide, and some of that can be emotional, but it was clearly a problem, and they were not handling it appropriately, in my opinion. So I felt like he needed a little more support, but I didn't have access to that support. So I kept trying to work with the school, and he was then reduced to a 2-hour school day right before the pandemic. On a 2-hour school day, and the day he was supposed to return to school because he was making improvements, they were going to increase his day, and he was supposed to go back for a full day the day the school's closed for COVID. So then possibly getting back into school, getting more skills with social skills and such. Then he ends up at home for well over a year with no contact with peers whatsoever. But something else happened during this time. My spouse was laid off from his job, and so we, at that time, qualified for Medicaid. We got the Medicaid. I was able to get the autism testing done. I was able to get all sorts of other services in place, some intensive home services and such. And I started getting different people to help. I got the IEP in place. I got parent advocates. I got all sorts of things to happen. And sadly, since the pandemic was so very, very difficult on everyone, kids like my son was way worse because they already don't have the skill set to handle normal challenges.
Absolutely.
So I had to really create a life for him during the pandemic, which mostly it was he and I going outside, walking around, taking dogs walking, started dog walking service for a little while. I encouraged him to do a lot of artwork and reading and things. And so I tried really hard to create a schedule and routine because kids with different abilities need routine, regularity, schedule. They need things to be predictable. And of course, things weren't predictable for a really long time. So while he got through the pandemic pretty well with me, he didn't really have any social interactions with peers. So then school returned on Zoom, and he wouldn't really do much on Zoom. So then when they offered the in-person option again, where they were going like 2 days a week and then not going the rest of the week, we tried that. But when you have a child that needs routine and regularity, that doesn't really create that for that child. So we tried that and it did not go well. We then again reduced him to virtual school until school became available on a full schedule. When school became available on a full schedule, we had him return to school in person. But now we have a child that really hasn't been around his peers for 2 years, who was already struggling prior to that. So then he gets into this environment, and it's now middle school, which, as people know, is no piece of cake, no matter whether you're completely typical or not. So now we have a child with complex needs and autism diagnosis, several different behavioral health diagnoses, trying to get into the system after not being around anyone. So his social skills were really inappropriate. And the first week he went back to school full time, he was doing really well. He made it through 3 weeks, really pretty successfully, until the school showed a video of 9/11, and the same day did one of those lockdown drills. And he did not handle it very well and made some inappropriate comments. And the school decided to pursue criminal charges against him because they didn't really understand what he was going through. No one thought this child was an actual threat to anyone, but we had to go through all these processes and deal with all this. Meanwhile, then we get involvement with DJJ and different things. So things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. When all the stress came on us from the different charges and things, and now we have a lot more people involved with him, stress levels started to increase. And then he was hospitalized again. During that hospitalization, we had found out that he had stopped taking his medication. And so they put him on new medication. And it turned out that that was not the right medication. So he came out of the hospital and was about as bad as he's ever been, to the point where I was wondering if he could stay in the home. He was getting quite destructive.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. But this is my child. So I'm like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm not sending him away. You know, I'm starting to hear from people what they would do if that was their kid. And, you know, but then I'm starting to hear schools trying to get more involved. The DJJ is starting to make recommendations and things. So the window for me to help this child is narrowing. And the Medicaid was going to end because my husband's back at work. But the Medicaid was extended due to pandemic relief. Even though my husband was no longer qualified, they extended it. So then we started to access other services. So now we have an IEP, we have a parent advocate, we have some services in place, etc. And
great.
One of the most life-changing thing that occurred was a genetic test for psychopharmaceutical sensitivity. And I wanted to rule out any medical causes for his escalation because this is my little buddy. We were very close, and now he's getting aggressive with me and doing things that he's never done. I'm like, this is not normal. It's like something just flipped. So we did this testing, and I come to find out that in actuality, the medication they had given him was having a paradoxical effect. It was making him worse, and it was outside of his control. So we were able to change that. And now he's at a point where he's back to himself again. And now we're able to start working on his skills again. And we still have medication extended because of the pandemic. So now we're trying more services. We have services for the autism and the behavioral health, none of which would have been possible without the Medicaid. So it went from a point where I was going to have to give up because of safety concerns for me and my child. I mean, he was not only getting aggressive, but he was threatening self-harm. It was absolutely.
So I'm sure. I can't imagine what that was like for you. So what diagnoses has he had over the years? What have they labeled him with?
Well, since he's a minor, there's some diagnoses that are not given to children. So they have some general diagnoses they tend to like to use. So he was given the autism level 1, which is high functioning. He was given disruptive dysregulated mood disorder diagnosis,
Okay.
which is where you'll see things like bipolar, all things. Diagnoses tend to encompass anything that he's too young to actually be diagnosed with.
Right.
And then he also had, let's see, he's got several diagnoses. I'm trying to remember all of them. He does have some OCD.
Okay.
And yeah, he's, the big one, oppositional defiant disorder. And
Okay.
dealt with that, we'll know that when you have a child with oppositional defiant disorder, anything you're trying to do to help them, they're going to fight you. So I'm
good point. Right.
you know, fighting me at every turn. So it was extremely exhausting, extremely defeating. And I start to lose people along the way. Like, my friends don't want to be around him anymore. My family members don't want to be around him anymore. He's not allowed to go to so-and-so's house. He's not allowed at this. He gets banned from all these places because it only takes one meltdown for people to immediately be like, oh, we don't want him here. So that was starting to happen too. And so all these,
that's so good.
For me, as well as him, I lost one of my jobs that I really loved because he was in their childcare. It was a very short periods he was in there, but he couldn't handle it. And so I lost that job. I lost the ability to do some of my other work, which was part-time. The only way I was able to work is my husband would watch him when I was at work, and I would watch him when my husband was at work. So there's really no ability to send this kid to any kind of daycare or camp or anything.
No.
So it's
Right.
me, then 100% he can't be left home alone. Even as a teen, needs more supervision than most kids, cannot be left on his own, cannot, things that most kids can do, ride his bike around the neighborhood. You know, there's just been too many things happen to make it where he can't do certain things. So, and he's fighting that all the time too.
I'm sure.
So now he's improving tremendously. We're working with a lot of different services to bring him to the point where he can function more independently. He can maybe attend a full school day at some point. Right now, he's on an hour and a half school day. So a lot of people think of school as their childcare, but let me tell you, it really isn't. And without the IEP, they could have kicked him out of school. They could have expelled him. The IEP,
so that's even with an IEP. Okay.
Visualized education plan that we have. When we have an IEP meeting now, we have 4 attorneys present sometimes. I have a district rights attorney, and the school board attorney attends as well. And I have to be really careful what I give to the school and what I don't give to the school, and that I continue a positive relationship with them when at the same time their attorney isn't really having our best interest at heart. It would be so much easier for them to not have him there, like the other places that have banned him. So the IEP has been really great to help him function in the school setting. And now he's got some special ed services on top of the IEP, so that even though he's in school an hour and a half, now they're supposed to be providing him additional support to maintain his academics for the classes he's not attending. Because that hour and a half is 1.5 classes. And he's at a grade now where he really needs to pursue his academics if he's going to have any success in education at all. So he's quite smart. He's not really struggling with the work, but he refuses to do it still. So we need a lot of support in that too. So it's taken everything I have, and I have gone into court. I have gone into IEP meetings. I have had to over and over again stand up and say, look, this is what's going on. This is what we need. Can you please do this? And I even had one of the judges tell me that, oh, you're a really good advocate for your child. And thank God I've been able to get them to agree to what I was asking for. And I had times when I felt like the school board attorney was pushing things in a direction that was really, really precarious for my child, and trying to claim that some of his issues were not a result of his disability, that he was just choosing to be a bad kid. And I had to fight that as well. So it's been really, really rigorous on my part just to constantly stand up for him. Meanwhile, there was a time when he was at his worst where I was having to call 911 and call crisis intervention, and my personal safety was at risk. And
I was going to ask you, I was going to ask you just how you've been able to handle it from your own personal health, well-being, safety. I mean, that's really, really tough when you've got kids that are having the difficulties that your son is having.
And the bigger
so
frightening it is. Because, when a 3-year-old punches you, you're just like, oh, that's not good. When a 10-year-old punches you, you're like, that's really not good. But when they turn into a teenager, it becomes more like an adult. And you have to really, really figure out how to help this child, because I can't have a child that's going to hit someone or kick someone or do anything aggressive. And then there's a fine line between mental health care and juvenile justice. So first thing I had to do is really ascertain, was his behavior a choice? And when I ascertained that it really wasn't a choice, that it was something going on with him that was outside of his control, then I had to try to get him all the help I could while trying to maintain my safety and his safety. And we had incidents where there was like a car door being opened on I-40, or, a big stick being swung, or, kicking the car door, punching the window. I mean, I have holes in some of my walls, things that were happening when he was on that wrong medication that were just absolutely crazy.
Making him extremely agitated, yeah. I have known a handful of parents over the years that have had to navigate a similar system for their child that was dealing with the sorts of struggles that you're talking about with your son. And you're right, as they get older, it can become even scarier in terms of, running away from home, running away from wherever they are staying, and violence, and then being asked to leave programs that they've been in. I mean, it's a full-time job to be an advocate for your kid.
Every day, what are you? 7 hours on the phone with different people trying to help. And it is absolutely full-time.
No, I don't doubt that at all. You're a warrior. You've been a warrior probably many lifetimes, because in order for you to be able to get through what you have to get through, hour by hour, day by day.
Well, and
where do you find this? And
can you really help your child is your child able to be helped? Because there are some people that really the parents cannot maintain. And you do sometimes find a child that does have to go into long-term care. And when you're to that point of trying to make that determination, I found myself having to ask, is there anything else I can do? Anything else I can do? So I did everything I could, and guess what? It helped. It started to work, and I didn't give up. But now, I still don't really know what his future looks like. I don't know. Is he going to be able to pull it together to real normalcy? Is he going to need help? And I'm an older parent too, so all these concerns are really genuine. But meanwhile, I couldn't have lived with myself if I had not done every possible thing.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what do you think allows you, what gives you the strength to continue to keep
one thing,
fighting?
Love him so much. I mean,
Yeah,
we all know, like, parents will lay down their life for their child. And
absolutely. Well, some parents will, some parents will. You're a special parent. You're a very special parent. I just want you to understand that, okay? Not everybody fights for their child like you are.
Well, I appreciate that. I did have certain people from DJJ and other agencies tell me that they were really excited because a lot of the parents are like, take my kid, please.
No.
But not me.
Yes.
Please don't take my kid. I want him.
No.
And
Right.
he's when he's doing well and when he's on the right medications and in control and his needs are being met appropriately, he's really an amazing human. He's so talented, so gifted. There's so many good qualities. And to see what happened on that wrong medication to the point where, I mean, nobody would want him around when he was on that wrong medication. It was absolutely terrifying. Had I not encountered the right assistance at that time, I don't know what I would have done. And how do I not give up? I have to really, really, really practice a lot of things that help me to stay physically able to handle the situation, emotionally and mentally able to handle the situation. I have to also not take things personally from him or from people that like to tell me what they, total strangers walk up. Well, your child's never been disciplined. That's his problem. I mean, people love to give their input in such an inappropriate way, and they have no idea. And even teachers and different people that don't have the proper training, they just don't understand. So I've had people tell me all sorts of things that you just have to trust your gut. That's not true. That's not right. I'm not going with that. So I had to create a regimen for myself and a schedule for myself that would work while handling him and dealing with him, as well as find the time to handle all the extra meetings and phone calls and court appearances and what have you for this child. So I can tell you that one of the things that helped me the most was practicing martial arts.
Oh, wow, cool.
And I had another parent advocate suggest that to me, and I'm like, I already do that. But she said that's things.
I had another parent that was telling me that one of the things about the martial arts that really helps her deal with her child that has special needs is this idea that you can control all the movements. You're in control of everything, which is like something that we all need to have. We have to have a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Help me, Violet. That we have the
sense of agency.
Agency. Thank you. The agency, the wherewithal to do what they need to do, and that there's something about having that level of control really helps them feel balanced out because there's so many things in their life they don't have control over.
Well, So the martial arts has so many layers to it because everyone that practices martial arts will tell you that the first goal for martial artists is to never fight. We don't want to fight. We want to be ready if we need to protect ourselves, etc. But we're not looking for a fight. So I felt really safe in that environment. I felt like I was learning how to protect myself physically in a way that wouldn't harm anyone. I learned different ways of, avoiding injury. But there's a layer of like the physical fitness aspect that helps you with your endorphins and things. There's all the tenets of Taekwondo and what have you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, continue. Yeah.
There's tenets of martial arts, things like self-control, indomitable spirit. I had to think a lot about that one, indomitable spirit, and what that means. And also, just maintaining compassion for this child and understanding that he wasn't choosing these behaviors, but yet finding ways to prevent myself from being hurt, finding ways to prevent him from being hurt. I had to, sadly, you do sometimes have to physically restrain a child when they're in danger. So I had to learn safe ways of doing all these things. The other element of martial arts that was really quite helpful was the sense of community and the amazing humans that I encountered. Because I'm in a situation where I've lost connections with friends and family, and, I have no social life. When I'm in martial arts, I now have a community again that accepts me for who I am and actually, has been kind even to my child. So, and I know that
absolutely. Yeah, the social support is so important, especially when, like you were saying earlier about, not getting the support from the community that doesn't know you, doesn't understand. They want to tell you, that your child just needs discipline and be judgmental. We all need that feeling of belonging, and that social support component of it is huge. I mean, that's why 12-step programs like AA work in large part, I think, is because of the social support. That's so essential. I'm so happy to hear that you get that from your martial arts community. That's awesome.
Well, the other things that you get in martial arts that you won't get anywhere else is the ability to just like really yell from your gut. That's so therapeutic. And then you can punch stuff and hit stuff. Like there's punching bags and kicking it. It really feels good when you have stuff inside that you can't let out, to let it out physically. And I will say also there's other things I've done, like my son and I, this lovely, lovely person, the first year of the pandemic, let us use her swimming pool. Thank God for her. I mean, I will never forget her as long as I live. I didn't really even know her. And so, getting in the water and that isolation of the sound instead of getting underwater and in the water, that's really healing. So while I'm doing all these things, I'm also trying to help my son find healthy outlets and things. So, and since he's with me most of the time, I have to find things I can do with him or while he's with my husband, so it's a lot, but, having connections over the years with a faith community, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. If you find some kind of spiritual connection and you find some physical mind, body, spirit, you have to address all those things in a way that works. Some people use meditation. I also am a musician, so playing music helps. Anything expressive and artistic can really help. I do some dance. I teach some dance and stuff. And I've created various communities online. And I've also found that through my struggles, the ability to help others has been really sustaining. So one of the things that my son and I did during the pandemic also was we once a month would make a meal for the houseless people living at one of the hotels. 65 people. We would make these meals, deliver them. They had to be prepared, ready to eat, individually wrapped. So we did that once a month, and we would deliver these meals. He would go with me. So we still felt like we were trying to make a difference in the world, and I was trying to encourage that in him. So, practicing helping others, as well as gratitude, practicing gratitude throughout everything. I find that daily gratitude practice is one of the most beneficial things as well. No matter how bad things get, I was trying to find the silver lining. Like, thank God we still have Medicaid. Oh, thank God this. Oh, just so many things. So I think that anyone that is, sunk into a really horrible situation, if they can learn that, and gratitude really takes work. It takes work.
There's research that shows that 15 minutes of gratitude lists a day is better than antidepressants. And the reason why is because we're creating new neural pathways by training your brain to look for things that you're grateful for. Then what happens after you've made that neural pathway from enough times of doing it, it's like reps with weights, then you begin doing it automatically, and you start walking around your life looking for things that you're grateful for. That's the way it works.
And you can enjoy the moment more. It's like a Zen practice too, like, oh, I'm here and there's such beautiful leaves and the birds are singing, and no matter what's going on, you can appreciate the everyday normal things. And I think it's such a combination of things that have helped me get through this difficult time. Helping others, finding gratitude, staying physically active, because again, there's studies that show that physical exercise can be as therapeutic and beneficial as antidepressants as well.
More so. I mean, there's almost nothing you can do that will help your mental health and your health more than exercise. Moving.
And I will say, I do have a few issues that I'm unhappy about that I feel have been affected by the stress and such. And one is, some weight gain and things. But even then, I'm like, well, at least I'm still moving. I'm still active. I'm strong. I try not to let it bother me. So honestly, I think we have to really, really work on physical health, gratitude, staying connected, helping others, those things that we have control over during a time when things are so difficult. And it's quite possible to actually have really, really positive and healthy moments in the midst of a nightmare. And when I see what people are going through in, Ukraine and all these different places, the one thing you'll notice is that you'll see people so grateful and so full of joy, even in the midst of the worst possible things. The human spirit, the indomitable spirit, is real. And I think that the worst thing a person could do is to start thinking about everything that's wrong all the time. If you start thinking about right, it really changes things.
Yeah, you begin manifesting better things in your life too. So what would you say has been the most helpful for you in terms of carving out time for healthcare or self-care? How do you do that? Because a lot of women struggle with finding the time, making the time, holding space for the time. Can you share a few tips about that with the listeners?
Well, I could say that it's like anything. You have a schedule. You schedule what time you get up. You schedule what time you go to bed. You schedule your meals. You schedule taking your kids to school, picking your kids up. Everything's scheduled. Your work is scheduled. Everything's scheduled. You have to schedule it to your day, and you have to treat it as a non-negotiable thing. So let's say you work an 8-hour day and you're tired and you don't want to go work out. Well, that's, maybe you find time to work out before work. or on your lunch hour or right after, but it will create more energy to find physical activities and things. And the thing with having a kid like my kid that really can't be left alone and stuff, you have to create things that you can do with your child. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, I have a baby, I can't do that. Well, I've seen moms put that baby on their chest and go hiking. And I've seen people with the strollers and, there are ways. And there are fitness classes for moms with little kids and things that they can do together. And there's some gyms that have free childcare. But then when you have a child with special needs, you can't always access that. But now that the pandemic has happened, so many things are available online, on Zoom. And I've started teaching some classes, some fitness classes on Zoom, exercises stuff. And I found at one time I was getting 11 or 12 people attending a class on Zoom, all of whom needed it desperately. So when you can work out from home, that changes everything too. It's all, the thing about self-care is that you have to decide, first of all, that you need it and that you're worth it and that it's not negotiable. And whatever excuses you have, even if they're legitimate excuses, you have to get around them somehow. And
Right.
because the alternative doesn't work. You can't just avoid it and you can't put it off. If it means that, maybe you're buying takeout a couple of times a week instead of cooking or, whatever it means, or meal prepping on Sunday for the whole week so you don't have to spend as much time cooking. There are ways to make it work. And I think that's a big one. Meal prepping ahead of time, having things ready so you can just heat up. That saves a lot of time. But planning everything out and having it set in your schedule. We all have schedules. I think that people just don't take it as seriously sometimes as they need to. It's a life or death thing. It's not.
Oh yeah, no. I did a podcast episode, actually after the Unstoppable French Brides lunch, or brunch rather. Just talking about how self-care is a choice, and we have to choose to place our health and our well-being first. No one else is going to do that for us. There may be other people in our lives, if we're lucky, encouraging us to take care of ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's on us. And we can't put everything else ahead of our needs. We receive a lot of messages as women that we're selfish if we take care of ourselves. And so one of my goals of this podcast is to really, like you said, make it so that self-care is non-negotiable.
Well, and
you have to come first.
Aside from the workouts and all that kind of healthy stuff that you have to do, you also have to have like veg out time without your kid and by yourself. And that doesn't mean always with your partner either. You have to take time by yourself, even if it means you get in your car and you drive downtown and park in the garage and go inside and get a coffee and just sit in your car and drink it, whatever. If you need peace and quiet, you should take it. And
you need a break.
But it does create issues in interpersonal relationships. Like my spouse and I don't have a normal relationship anymore because we can't go out on a date without our kid. Every time we go out, he has to be with us. So it really requires stewardship of things that looks different from the norm. But that doesn't mean you don't still make efforts. And I know you mentioned the French brides, and I was supposed to go, but I couldn't go because I didn't have childcare. But, I absolutely have to make the time, and you can't feel guilty for making the time. And then, of course, there's the worry, is something going to go wrong while I'm not around or not reachable? And, you just have to let that go. You just have to.
You absolutely have to.
And then,
You know, I had another podcast where I talked about something that I developed last year called my body double, which is like an exact replica of yourself that you can queue up, like a holographic version of you that you can queue up that'll be like a drill sergeant. Like, you know what? I know you've seen 10 patients today, but you're going to go get dressed. You're going to go work out as hard as you can, and then you're going to take a shower and relax. So let's go. And like, get me to do the things I need to do, or combat that voice of mine that says, you don't have time for self-care today. Or, right? So,
and that's that ties into something that I like to do, and that is I practice, like, what would you tell someone else?
Yes.
How would you talk to your best friend about this? What would I tell you, Rhonda? And this sounds like it's the same kind of concept.
We're doing the same.
Anyone else, and give yourself at least that.
Yeah, because so many of us, can bully ourselves without even realizing that we're doing it, and can be judging ourselves about all these little things throughout the course of the day. And if you feel really bad about yourself because you're bullying yourself, you're not going to practice self-care because you don't feel worth it. You don't feel worthy of that.
Indeed.
And recognizing that rather than being a bully, we have the power within us. Our brain is the most powerful thing in the universe. We have the power in us to talk to ourselves in a way that we can be our own biggest fan. We can be our own fitness coach. We can be our own best friend. We can be our own therapist. We have the power to do that, and you're already doing it.
Well, I mean, I work on it. I will say this. I'm not necessarily so good at, not struggling with self-esteem and all that and not blaming myself. But I really have to work on not doing that. When you see your child struggling, you just really can't worry about if it's someone's fault or if you cause it. I mean, you can't, because it doesn't matter what the original cause is. It could be genetic. It could be physical, whatever. You can't worry about it. You just have to move forward from here forward.
You got to keep it moving. You got to keep it moving.
And
well, you have such a
positivity to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that gratitude is so important. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So today you shared a lot of information and resources and things that you've done that are really helpful for you in terms of being able to navigate this. And I feel like you're probably doing even better than you're sharing with us in terms of like what you've been able to accomplish with your son and like beating the odds with him, what's one last message for the listeners if they have a child that has complex needs?
I'm going to tell you right now, they need a parent advocate. In Buncombe County, they are free. First for Families and Children, I think it's called. They have parent advocates available. The connecting with the right services is very difficult. If you have Medicaid, you can get a care coordinator to help you with what's available. But you have to really connect. You have to find that network of people that have been through it. And if anybody needs my help, to reach out to me, and I'll give them all the list of resources I have. I'm happy to do that. And the other part is you absolutely also need to find yourself a therapist and a counselor.
Absolutely.
But the parent advocate is the first thing. And then Disability Rights of North Carolina is a free service from the federal government that oversees disability rights. They have attorneys, they have parent advocates and things as well. So just remember that, it's okay to be a Karen. when a child is not getting what they need, I will go to the manager and I will go to I've made complaints to Via Health. I've made complaints to DHHS. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. stop at nothing. Stop at nothing.
So I'll include your email address in the description of this podcast today.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate your patience as the people that are listening to this don't know what we had to contend with today, do they?
And, I will tell you, I'm very grateful to you because your heart is in this. I know you're not getting paid for these podcasts, and you're trying to help everybody. And we all need to do more of that. And I'm so happy that you're doing this. And I'm taking every opportunity I can to try to reach out to other parents and inform them of some of the things that I've had to figure out. So the more you do, it's really wonderful. I'm really so grateful to you.
And I'm very grateful to you. You have such an inspirational story. You've overcome so much, and I really appreciate the time that you took today to talk to us and share with people what's been helpful for you and to inspire other people to not give up, never give up.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, okay?
Dude, take care. I look forward to meeting you in person eventually.
I'll see you at the next brunch. I saw your name on the list. Yeah, fingers crossed. Okay, Great to see you. Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.